Welcome to Unit 1, Part 2, Rhetorical Analysis and the Writing Process. Guide to the PowerPoint. Please note that this PowerPoint contains the prompts to essay number 1. Rhetorical analysis is the close, critical reading of a text to figure out exactly how it functions. It usually breaks a work of nonfiction into parts and then explains how the parts work together to create a certain effect, whether to persuade, entertain, or inform, sometimes more than one. So rhetorical analysis analyzes the use of rhetoric in a text. Remember that rhetoric refers to the rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. So when I say that you're looking for rhetoric in an essay or an article, that means you're looking to see how an author used the appeals to persuade their readers of something. So maybe they use pathos to win over their readers emotionally, or maybe they use ethos to get their readers to trust them because of their credibility, etc. When rhetorically analyzing a piece of text, you want to think about how the details affect the audience. Think about ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. Think about why the author would use ethos, or pathos, or logos, or kairos to make a point. How does ethos affect the audience? How does pathos affect the audience? How does logos affect the audience? And how does kairos affect the audience? What strategies are being used to move me, to win my trust? Why those strategies? Why might an author use an example of pathos instead of logos? How was the author effective in persuading the audience? As in, did they use pathos? Provide an example. Did they use kairos? Provide an example. You want to think about how the author used rhetoric because your essay is going to be making an analysis of that. You're going to be discussing the appeals and how they helped the author persuade their audience that their argument is a correct argument. Additional questions to consider. What is the purpose of the argument? What is it hoping to achieve? Or what appeals does the argument use? Consider how the argument's arranged. Is it organized effectively? Essay number 1, Rhetorical Analysis Prompt. Write a rhetorical analysis assessing the effective use of rhetoric in an article. The articles are posted in Canvas under Unit 1 Readings. They are also found in this module. In your analysis, you must use at least 2 appeals. You can choose to analyze the author's use of ethos, pathos, logos, and/or kairos. You are of course welcome to use more than 2 appeals to write your analysis. This means that if you want to write one paragraph about ethos, one about pathos, one about logos, you definitely can. Just keep in mind, not all of the articles have all of the appeals in them, so you will have to review the articles and see which appeals you can find. Article options, Unit 1 Readings. To begin the rhetorical analysis, you must choose one of the articles provided to you in the module. They should look like the image here on the right. Preview the article options by reading the summaries on the following slides. You can find these complete readings in this module as well as in Files, Unit 1, College Readiness, Unit 1 Readings. Let's take a look at the summaries. Option 1 is called The Image of College Students and the Myth of Linguistics Homogeneity. Please read the brief summary to yourself. Option 2. College graduates fare well even through recession. Option 3. Higher education, not what it used to be. One thing I want to note here is that this article is written by The Economist. There's no specific author. The Economist is the name of the magazine. Option 4. My education, repossessed. Option 5. Why are textbooks so expensive? The writing process. The writing process is split into pre-writing, writing, and revising. We are going to preview pre-writing and writing. Please note that revising can be found in the PowerPoint titled Unit 1, Part 4. Pre-writing is made up of understanding the rhetorical situation, breaking down the prompt and making annotations, and taking into consideration some writing tips. Understanding the rhetorical situation is important to any essay assignment. The rhetorical situation is all of the information you need to understand how to write your essay. The essay is made up of the writer, the audience, the topic, the why, the purpose, and the how. So you are the writer, your audience is me and your peers, and the topic in this case is college education. The genre, or the how, is what we call style. So in this case, you're writing a rhetorical analysis and you're using academic style. The why is what we call exigence. What prompted you to do this assignment? Well, it's your homework, so you kind of just have to do it. The purpose is to show how an author effectively utilizes rhetoric to make a point. So all of this information together creates what we call context. The who, the what, the where, the why, and the how. Who, right? Your author. What? They made an argument. Where? In their article, etc., etc. Understanding this just helps you understand the pre-writing stage. That way you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and why you're supposed to be doing it. Remember, context is important to understanding. The best pre-writing strategies are breaking down your prompt and annotating your text. The prompt breakdown includes highlighting the action words, also called verbs, on the prompt. Verbs clue you in to which tasks you need to complete. Annotate your article. Remember to annotate the article before you begin your essay to prepare your evidence ahead of time. This way you can make note when you see an example of ethos or pathos or logos or kairos. That way you don't have to keep rereading and rereading your article when you're looking for evidence to support your thesis in your body paragraphs. Please read these pre-writing tips to yourself. Writing. Writing is broken up into 3 sections. The introduction, which is the beginning of an essay, the bodies, which is the middle of the essay, and the conclusion, which is the end of the essay. The introduction is made up of context and a thesis statement. In this case, for essay number 1, your introduction should be at least 1 paragraph made up of at least 5 to 7 well-developed sentences. We'll go over what that means. Bodies. Analysis and supportive evidence with sufficient context. 3 paragraphs minimum. Conclusion. This is where we tie up loose ends. This is also where we provide our own insight. 1 paragraph minimum, 5 or more sentences. How to write an introduction. You should capture the interest of your readers, summarize some background information regarding the topic, remember, context building, provide a focal point that states your main claim. This is what we call the thesis statement. How do we capture our audience's interest? Well, we can include relevant personal experiences. Think about your experience as a college student. Quotations or paraphrases from credible sources. Shocking statistics. Summarize background information to start your introduction paragraph. Well, you build context for your reader. Introduce and discuss the topic of your article before you introduce it to your reader. This will be part 1 of your introduction. This should be at least 3 to 4 sentences. Here's an example of a background sentence. Community colleges are becoming more popular as a first choice for first-time college students. Now, if I were reading this essay, I would know that this essay was going to be talking about community colleges. Next, you want to introduce and summarize the article. This will be part 2 of your introduction. This should be at least 1 to 2 sentences. Here's an example of somebody introducing their article into their introduction paragraph. In the article, Why More Students Are Choosing Community Colleges Over Universities, author John Clarkson argues that community colleges offer opportunities for all kinds of students, not just the right type of student. So in this example, the student introduced the text, the title, and the author, and gave us a very brief summary. So now we've completed part 1, and we've completed part 2. Now let's take a look at part 3, which is the final portion of your introduction paragraph. Constructing a thesis statement, part 3. The thesis will make up the last part of your introduction. Every essay requires a unique thesis. This essay is a rhetorical analysis, so your thesis should do the following. 1. Make an analytical claim. In this case, you're going to make an analytical claim by stating how effective the author was in their use of rhetoric. 2. Use 2 or more appeals, ethos, pathos, logos, or kairos. And 3. Mention the author's goal. What point are they making? A thesis should be easy to find, and it should also be grammatically correct. Let's take a look at some examples. In order to create a well-developed thesis, you need A, an analytical claim, B, the appeals, and C, the author's goal. Let's take a look at an example on the right. The author effectively uses logos and pathos to persuade readers that a college education is important even though it is expensive. So in this case, our thesis contains an analytical claim that the author is in fact effective, the appeals, logos and pathos, and the author's goal. Let's take a look at another example. Remember, you can reorder the information in a thesis. It just needs to include the analytical claim, the appeals, and the author's goal. In this case, they went with the author's goal, then the claim, then the appeals. The article makes a compelling argument that college is the best path to success by effectively using ethos and logos. So let's review. In a rhetorical analysis, you are analyzing how an author uses rhetoric to make their argument. You will read an article and look for examples of the author using rhetorical appeals to make a point. Your introduction paragraph will introduce the topic, introduce and briefly summarize the article, and end in a thesis statement. Your thesis is going to tell us which appeals the author used to make their argument. Example article rhetorical analysis. Let's say you choose an article that uses ethos and logos. Your thesis will then tell your reader that the author effectively used ethos and logos to make their argument. Remember, you must include the author's argument in your thesis statement. Let's review the example thesis statement again. Let's break down the thesis. The article makes a compelling claim that college is the best path to success by effectively using ethos and logos. So what does each part mean? When we break it down, your thesis is made up of 3 parts: the appeals, the author's goal, and the analytical claim. The appeals in this case are ethos and logos. The author's goal in this case was to make the argument that college is the best path to success. Your analytical claim is that you think the author was successful at using the rhetorical appeals. So when we piece all of it together, we get our thesis statement. The article makes a compelling claim that college is the best path to success by effectively using ethos and logos. So then you would go on to prove this in your body paragraphs, which is next. Body paragraphs. What are paragraphs? Paragraphs are made up of meaningful, related, and well-developed sentences. Separate paragraphs indicate when a discussion shifts from one topic to another. Body paragraphs serve multiple purposes. They expand on the analysis made in the thesis, and they provide textual evidence from the article to support the thesis. When to start a new body paragraph. To introduce a new subject or idea after the introduction. In this case, an analysis of an appeal used by the author. To emphasize a new or important idea. To give readers a needed pause. For example, long paragraphs don't always work well in short essays, so you can always break a long paragraph into 2 shorter ones. You should also start a new body paragraph when you need to end an essay. This is called the conclusion paragraph. How to start. Begin writing your body paragraphs by outlining your ideas. Please see the examples on the next slide that uses a bubble chart to outline a single body paragraph. The goal is to make a list of the information you're going to use and piece it together into a cohesive paragraph. Here's an example of a body paragraph that's going to explain how an author used ethos. The idea here is just to make notes for yourself so that you can create a body paragraph. What are body paragraphs made of? Well, they have transitions, they include context and background information, they have supportive evidence from a source, they include commentary, and they transition into the next paragraph. Transitions are words and phrases that help us organize our ideas into meaningful sentences and paragraphs. See a list of examples here. Context and background information. We've gone over this, but let's review. It is your job to provide context for your readers. Be clear about what you're discussing. Do not assume your reader knows what you're talking about. Create context by introducing the main point of a paragraph by using a topic sentence. Define any unfamiliar terms for your reader, and always answer the who, what, why, when, and where. Supportive evidence. Examples from the text. When you tell your reader that an author used ethos, you need to show them evidence from the text. Find examples of the appeals in the text, your article, and quote or paraphrase them in your essay as supportive evidence. You must include an MLA parenthetical citation. This is also called an in-text citation. Personal experience as supportive evidence. Only use personal experiences if they are important to the analysis. For example, you can explain how the author's appeal to pathos had an emotional effect on you. Sources, quotes, and paraphrases. Please note that Unit 1, Part 3 goes over this in detail, so I'm going to skip this. Commentary. What you are saying versus what your sources say. Provide commentary after using a quote or paraphrase. You need to explain why the evidence is relevant. Provide your insight, your explanation of relevant information, and how it contributes to your analysis and supports your thesis. Find more details to this in the Part 3 PowerPoint. Body paragraph. Let's take a look at an example structure. If you are writing a body paragraph analyzing an author's use of ethos, here's an example of information you might include. Build context by defining and explaining key terms. Explain how building ethos early on can help a writer prove their point. Use evidence from the article that shows the author using ethos and provide commentary. Discuss how ethos relates to professional experience. Find an example from the text that shows the author using their own research to make a point. Include your paragraph and transition into the next one. Let's review. In the body paragraphs, you are providing evidence of how an author uses rhetoric to make their argument. You provide an example and follow it up with commentary. Commentary is your interpretation of the information, which emphasizes why the example is important to your analysis. Remember, you need to explain to us how your evidence is an example of the rhetorical appeal being used. Your body should provide a clear analysis, providing relevant examples with MLA citations. Remember to check Unit 1, Part 3 PowerPoint for more information on citations. Conclusions, ending paragraphs, and the essay. Concluding sentences help the reader understand the overall message of the paragraph. It helps move the reader from one topic to the next. It shows that this paragraph is done. Concluding ideas help the reader make sense of the overall essay. Concluding sentences summarize, they use linking words, and they often anticipate the topic of a next paragraph, if there is one. The conclusion can include your interpretation of information, your insight and concluding thoughts on the topic, advice, warnings, or appeals to action. Be cautious about using quotes or counter-arguments to end your work. Make sure that you get the last word. Here is the second half of the prompt, guidelines. Now that you've got an introduction to rhetorical analysis and reviewed the writing process, let's take a look at the guidelines from the prompt. The guidelines ask you to write a fully developed thesis-driven essay answering all parts of the prompt. Now you know what a thesis is and what it should look like. Must be 4 complete double-spaced pages in length. This means 4 full pages. You have to reach the bottom of the 4th page. Title it Essay Number 1. Your thesis statement should state the analysis, 2 or more appeals, and the author's argument. Please review this PowerPoint for more information. Your bodies should support your thesis by using evidence from the article. The only required source for this essay is the one you're analyzing. Remember, those readings can be found in the Unit 1 readings file or in this module. This essay must be in MLA format, including the Works Cited page. Remember, the Works Cited page will be your 5th page if you write a 4-page essay. Remember to incorporate vocabulary from class. Refrain from describing something where an academic word already exists. For example, instead of saying something like, the author is convincing because he uses facts, you can say, the author proves her point through the use of logos, more specifically through the use of facts. Then you show how with evidence.